In 1908, a discovery was made that changed American archaeology forever. The Folsom Site, otherwise known as the Wild Horse Arroyo. Dating back as far as 10,800 BCE, and one of the oldest human settlements on the continent, the discovery pushed back the belief that humans first arrived in the Americas 3,000 years ago by over 7,000 years. The Folsom Site is incredibly well preserved, with many important artifacts recovered that show us a valuable insight into how these ancient people lived and survived. In today's video, we will be delving into the depths of the Folsom Site to discover who these ancient people were, how they lived, and what happened to them. Sit back and relax as we travel back through time to ancient America to unravel the mysteries of some of the very first Americans. The Folsom Site, located 8 miles west of Folsom, New Mexico, is just one archaeological site in what was thought to have been a massive expanse of the Folsom culture. Believed to have spanned from central Canada in the north to the northeastern coast of Mexico in the south, and covering much of what are now the central United States of America, the people of the Folsom culture covered much of the Great Plains in their time. They would have inhabited a world of rolling hills, vast open expanses of grassland, scorching deserts, and lush woodlands. Rivers filled with fish and skies full of birdsong would have been commonplace for the Folsom people, and they would have come face to face with many extinct species of long-lost megafaunal animals. The Folsom culture is thought to have lasted between 11,000 and 10,000 BCE, with the Folsom Site in particular being populated from 10,800 to 10,200 BCE. The Folsom people are thought to have emerged from the preceding Clovis culture, who were amongst the very first humans in America, and whom we have covered previously on the channel. The Folsom culture is thought to have overtaken the Clovis culture with the advent of new technologies and hunting techniques, which made those utilized by the Clovis obsolete. Around the time the switch in cultures appeared, many species of megafaunal mammals, such as the ancient bison, mammoths, and ground sloths, began to disappear, leading archaeologists and paleontologists to believe that the Folsom culture may have played a key part in the disappearance of some of these animals. Climate change towards the end of the Ice Age is thought to have been equally to blame, however. The Folsom people are known to have specialized in hunting ancient bison, particularly the species Bison antiquus, an animal that is now absent from the Great Plains of North America. Flint-tipped spears were used primarily to hunt these animals, which were either opportunistically taken on their own or strategically hunted collectively as part of a herd. Folsom culture hunters would chase bison herds into narrow valleys, where more members of the clan would be waiting. As the bison approached the area, they would have been pelted with spears and rocks from above as the additional hunters made their move, allowing for a large prize from one singular hunt. Such hunting sites have been discovered in the modern day, where large numbers of bison skeletons have been found in the same areas, at the bottoms of ravines or valleys. Such sites include the Cooper Bison Kill Site in Harper County, Oklahoma, which was thought to have been used twice or 3 times on separate hunts, each hunt yielding a kill of between 20 to 30 animals. One skull here was discovered with red zigzag patterns painted across the cranium, which points to the idea that it may have been a ritual site of great religious importance to the Folsom peoples who lived in the region. The Folsom people were known primarily from their unique spear points, much sharper and pointed than the Clovis points that preceded them. These spear points were attached to refined poles or sticks that were thrown with great force at prey items. The materials for such spearheads were abundant, and with skill, the spears themselves were simple to use, providing an effective means of defense or offense in the often harsh and untamed environments of ancient America. The flint used in the Folsom spearheads was higher quality, much more carefully crafted and effective in hunting than those used by the Clovis people, and were fluted, meaning that a groove was etched down the middle of the point from top to bottom. This appears to have been a case of trial and error for the Folsom people, as many failed attempts at making them have been found across the regions associated with their settlements. Flint was important to the Folsom people and was used in many of their crafts and tools. As well as spears, knives and scrapers were constructed from flint that were used to chop food, prepare animal carcasses, cut wood, and craft more tools. On top of this, the Folsom people were able to harness the power of stone and bone, of which tools were constructed out of simplicity or when flint was less available. Some stone and bone tools have been found to have been dyed using primitive paints made from ochre, which may be an indicator that they were perhaps used in religious rituals. It may also show that craftsmen or hunters preferred to personalize their tools to add a touch of character to them. The Folsom people are thought to have lived in relatively small communities, usually with several families grouped together that would be manageable and easy to feed and house over the colder winter months. Up to 5 families of 25 to 30 people were thought to have occupied each village, but communication between neighboring groups was common. It is thought that at times when bison herds were spotted in the area, tribes or clans would group together to seize the opportunity, sharing the spoils between the communities to ensure mutual success. The Folsom Site came to the attention of American archaeologists on the 27th of August, 1908, after a period of unusual rainfall near the site of Johnson Mesa in New Mexico, not far from the town of Folsom. George McJunkin, a local cowboy, was traveling along the dry Cimarron River, taking a look at the effects of the rainfall on the area when he discovered something interesting: bones uncovered by the abnormal weather. These were the bones of ancient bison, and similar sites had been uncovered across America prior to this. Amateur naturalists visited the site a few years after McJunkin passed away in 1922 and collected the bones, which at this point were confirmed to be mixed in with the bones of ancient humans. They took them to the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, where paleontologists Jesse Figgins and Harold Cook identified them, accompanying them back to the site the same year to discover more. The first human finds at the Folsom Site were teeth, mixed in with several bones of extinct megafauna mammal species. A few years later, in 1924, 3 Folsom points were discovered at the site, the spears of which were believed to have killed a nearby bison, whose skeleton was not far away. Several more of these finds were unearthed across the following years, when in 1927, an immaculately preserved spearhead was found directly next to a bison antiqua skeleton. There was no doubt that there was a connection between all these finds. This was extremely significant. At this time, it was believed that humans first arrived in North America 3,000 years ago. These new finds pushed that theory back over 7,000 years, revolutionizing the way American anthropology was perceived. As such, these discoveries were not seen in a positive light by everybody at this time. Many archaeologists ignored the evidence in favor of their own pre-existing theories, and both Figgins and Cook were shunned from 7 academic symposiums that covered ancient North America over the next 10 years. Much of the thinking around this time centered around the biblical belief that the world was created 6,000 years ago. So Figgins and Cook's theory of man entering the North American continent around 15,000 years ago was controversial. Ancient human discoveries that took place from the mid-1800s to the early 1900s were shunned and rejected by many, and the Folsom revelations were a byproduct of this. Alice Hrdlicka was one of the first scientists to claim that humans first entered the Americas 3,000 years ago. And when his theory came crashing down, he wasn't happy, spearheading the campaign against Figgins and Cook in favor of his own biblically influenced ideas. Hrdlicka, along with William Henry Holmes of the esteemed Smithsonian Institution, made it intimidating for any anthropologist, archaeologist, or paleontologist to suggest that humans had been in America any earlier than they said they were, which created a taboo of misinformation in the scientific community around this time. Figgins and Cook would eventually gain credibility and support for their ideas, and it is now commonly accepted that humans first arrived in North America at some point between 15,000 and 20,000 years ago. They did this by crossing a now non-existent land bridge that connected Asia and North America over what is now the Bering Strait between Russia and Alaska. From there, they traveled south via Central America, traveling into South America to populate the jungles, mountains, and forests of what would eventually become Brazil, Peru, and Argentina. The Folsom culture's eventual disappearance is a rather hazy period of prehistory that is still draped in mystery, as many of the Folsom sites appear to have been simply abandoned by around 10,200 to 10,000 BCE. By 8,000 BCE, all evidence of the Folsom culture seems to have disappeared, and the Paleo-Indian period came to an end. It is around this time that we see the post-pattern culture begin to form, which spanned across both North and South America. Before long, this would give way to the Archaic period, where Native American cultures would start to arise across the continent of North America. The Folsom culture likely disappeared as a result of more advanced technology emerging across the continent, which resulted in communities of people leaving their homes to band together with other groups of people elsewhere in the area. Today, all they have left behind are their ancient settlements, with their intricately carved tools and mounds of bison carcasses preserved where their villages once stood. These finds have offered scientists an excellent peek into the lives and cultures of these ancient peoples, and we can only hope that in time there will be more to come from the remnants of this mysterious lost culture.